Good morning. My name is Acting Staff Sergeant Jason Smith of the Calgary Police Service General Investigation Section. At approximately 4:30 p.m. on Monday, March 23rd, 2015, Calgary Police Service were called to the residents in the 1400 block of Richland Road N.E. after someone who lived in the home found their dog dead and buried in the backyard. Through a joint investigation with the Calgary Humane Society and with assistance for the City of Calgary's Animal and Bylaw Services, it was determined that the dog's death was suspicious. A necropsy performed by the Calgary Humane Society later confirmed the dog had injuries consistent with being beaten, and the cause of death was a deep cut on the animal's neck. It's believed that there was a dispute between two people living at the residence, and the dog was taken from a locked area, badly beaten, and killed with a knife, then buried in the backyard. Police believe this was a targeted attack, and there was no danger to any other animals in the community as a result of this incident. The dog's name was Chevy, and she was a border collie mix. Robert Malcolm Nicholson, aged 34, is charged under the Criminal Code of Canada with breaking and entering, mischief to property, obstruction of justice, killing an animal without lawful excuse, and causing unnecessary suffering to an animal. He has also been charged under the Alberta Animal Protection Act with causing an animal to be in distress. On behalf of the Calgary Police Service, I would also like to thank the other agencies who assisted us in this investigation, especially the Calgary Humane Society, who brought a significant amount of expertise to this investigation. I can answer any questions that you might have.
Do you know the motive behind the attack?
I can't speak to the motive of the actual attack. We know there was a neighbour dispute that occurred some time before.
Can you elaborate on the neighbor dispute? What was the connection between the owners of the dog and the person who's been charged and that whole relationship?
I can't speak to the nature of the neighbour dispute that took place. It's still an ongoing court investigation, and we're just going to protect the integrity of that investigation.
How about the people themselves? Were they tenants in the same house? Just what?
Both people lived at the same residence at some point in the past.
We've seen some recent cases where charges under provincial animal protection acts, even if that person's convicted, the no owning animals don't carry between provinces. Did this person have a history of abusing animals in other provinces? Because I know that he's been ordered to live at a home in BC, so he must have some connections there.
Okay, I can't speak to anyone's criminal background. It's not the police's position to speak to that.
Do you know if the family still lives in the home right now? I know they were supposed to move out yesterday.
I'm not aware of that information at this time.
Can you just comment about this incident? This is really unusual and very rare. Would you say so with your experience?
I can't speak to how often this happens. What I can say is that whenever animal abuse is reported to the Calgary Police, it is taken seriously. This is a serious incident that the police and Calgary Humane Society have investigated. I'd encourage anyone else who's aware of any other animal abuse or harm to an animal to report it to the police or the Calgary Humane Society.
So the family who owned the dog, Sway, found the dog. Can you talk a little bit about the details of discovery?
I can't speak to the discovery. What I can say is that the owner of Chevy contacted Calgary Police, and that's how the police started the investigation.
Can you just sort of speak to the nature of this attack? I mean, dog stabbed in the neck and...
What I can speak to is the details of the necropsy that shows that the dog was beaten and then was killed by a cut to the throat. I can't speak to the nature of the attack because no one else that I know of was there at the time.
All I mean is it's pretty egregious, right? Can you just sort of talk about how significant that is?
It is significant. Any of us as human beings would be appalled by a dog being beaten and killed. So it is a significant incident, you're right, and that's why I encourage anyone else who's aware of animal abuse to report it.
What penalties could he face if found guilty?
Under the animal cruelty, there is a maximum of 10-year sentence. Some of the criminal code charges are indictable offences that carry a maximum of 10 years. I can't speak to what any individual person would receive as a sentence. That's for the courts to decide.
Could we ask the people from the Humane Society? Give us your name and title as well.
Brad Nichols, Manager of Cruelty Investigations, Calgary Humane Society.
And your role in the investigation?
We were involved in this in a support role. Calgary Police Service was first responder, primary investigator. We offered veterinary forensic support.
What are your thoughts on this incident and your experience dealing with animal cruelty? Where does this rate and what are your thoughts about it?
Yeah, it's graphic, it's violent. You know, you never like to see these types of incidents. It seems as though, generally speaking, when we have an abuse case that results in death, it most often is the result of an animal behavior issue. That doesn't seem to be the case here. So this is a rare incident in that I can't speak to the motive, but it doesn't appear that it was animal behavior related.
Can you speak to maybe just any sort of common characteristics of people who do this to an animal?
Well, I mean, generally speaking, with these severe abuse cases, you see characteristics like poor anger management, coping skills, that sort of thing. Sometimes mental illness, but I can't speak to any mental soundness in this case.
Is there any kind of concern that he's been ordered to live in another province, he may be able to be around other animals?
This is the first I'm hearing of that, to be honest. You know, there are often, in cases where an individual has been charged, conditions disallowing contact with animals.
I just mean, would that be hard to enforce if he's living in BC?
I mean, by us for sure,
Okay.
but you know, British Columbia has their own protection department as well.
You share information with other provinces?
Occasionally.
Can you just comment about what's been happening in the last number of years? It just seems there seems to be this ongoing number of incidents involving cruelty to animals.
You know, I don't know that it's an increase in the offenses themselves as it is a more conscious and intolerant society. We're seeing more reports, we're seeing more people less willing to put up with this kind of behavior. And to be quite frank, you know, in the last year or so, the partnership that my organization has had with the Calgary Police has made Calgary a leader nationally.
How difficult is it for you as an investigator to go to a city like this and see this kind of treatment?
Well, I mean, never mind me being an investigator, being a person who has empathy for animals and owns animals, it's not easy to see. You know, it's a bit easier being able to be involved in the solution, but you know, that's not something you ever like to see.
I wouldn't mind, if we're done questioning,
Yeah.
just getting you to answer the question about enforcement in another province, Staff Sergeant?
Sorry, just to clarify to you, if there are conditions imposed, they would be Canada-wide under the criminal code.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, so it depends what the courts do, but if there are conditions imposed.
No, I understand that, but I'm just asking if it's more difficult to enforce them, like, or if there's communication between provinces, that kind of thing. Yeah. So.
Yeah, can you just say that in the mic actually as well?
I'm going to just re-ask the question.
Sure. Just talk about the process of enforcing bail conditions when somebody's living in another province.
Okay. Whenever someone's charged with criminal charges, if they receive bail conditions, those conditions are valid across Canada and can be enforced across Canada if anyone's found breaching conditions.
So are you communicating with authorities in BC then?
I can't speak to this specific case, if we're going to communicate with them or not.
So you
I won't speak to this specific case, but the conditions are on a national CPIC system and are enforceable anywhere in Canada.
I have one more question. You said that it doesn't seem to be a behavioral issue with the dog. Is this a threat against the family itself, considered like this threat to the family itself?
Calgary Police, we can't speak to the motive behind the attack. We can speak to the fact that the dog was beaten and killed. We can't say what the reason behind that was.